What's up, everybody? Welcome to With All Due Respect. I'm your host, Marcus Flowers, with our great co-host, Madeline Summerville. How you doing today, Maddie?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Marcus?
I mean, it's yeah, it's been a week already. It's only
Hmm.
Wednesday, and it's already been a week, you know. But before we get into this, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. Welcome back to the show. And
Welcome,
like I said,
welcome.
it has been a crazy few days of news. We've got election interference going on. You know, Trump and those guys are cranking it up. They're getting ready for the midterms to try and interfere as much as they can. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk a little bit about the Pentagon today and, the fact that they can't stop punishing people. You know, that's very, very telling in and of itself.
Hmm.
And, this Kennedy Center drama that just somehow seems to not be going away. It just won't go away. Maddie, what's going on? And
Yeah, it's kind of like the reflecting pool thing or the ballroom. It's just, I think it's just a little piece of drama that he can keep throwing in there because he knows it's like catnip for liberals. That we'll keep talking about that and not about the economy or something.
the distractions. It's
Hmm.
always the distractions to get people off messages. And then, I hate that we as Democrats fall for that
We do, but
every
I mean, if
cycle.
he's
It
doing
seems
something
like,
important, you know.
yeah. So, and yeah, we got to also get into the Supreme Court and them holding the line for Donald Trump and our neighbors up north who, you know, were willing to tell Trump no.
Hmm. Thank
Yeah,
goodness
or
somebody
go
can tell
get
him
bent,
no.
or go get bent in this
Right?
in this
Exactly. Pound
case.
sand. Yeah.
So, but yeah, before we talk about politics today, I want to begin with Dolly Parton. Dolly died yesterday at the age of 80, and for millions of people, that news felt personal. And that's an extraordinary thing to say about a singer, songwriter, actress, businesswoman, philanthropist. But Dolly was never just a celebrity. She became part of our emotional fabric in American life. She wrote songs about heartbreak, work, ambition, poverty, faith, and survival. You know, she came from the mountains of East Tennessee, and built one of the most remarkable careers in American entertainment. And she never seemed to lose her connection to the people and the place that she came from. But her legacy is not just music. Dolly understood that success creates obligation. Through the Imagination Library, she helped put books in the hands of children, across the country and around the world. Through Dollywood and her other work, she created jobs and invested in her community. You know, and through her public life, she demonstrated something that we don't see a lot of anymore, and that's that you can be enormously successful without being cruel, and that you can be enormously famous without being, inaccessible. I also want to say something personal. Dolly's sister is a friend of mine, and I reached out to her yesterday. So today I'm not just talking about the passing of an American icon. I'm thinking about a family that's grieving, a sister, an aunt, a grandmother, and a friend. Dolly Parton made the world feel a little bit more generous, a little more humorous, and a little more humane. That's a legacy worth honoring before we turn to politics today.
Hmm.
Maddie, what are your thoughts on Dolly?
That was beautiful. Very, very well said. And I am so sorry for the family and for your friend. She was my if you could have dinner with any person, living or dead, who would you choose? And now it's very sad that it's shifted into the now that she's passed, but that was my person. Um, and for anybody who knows the work that I do, they would know why. Because I do think that she functioned as a bridge. And it's cool because actually, you and I have the same favorite Dolly song, which is
That's crazy.
which, right, like, of course, we'd have the same favorite song. But what was cool for me was I only knew that story because I went to Jewish school. I didn't like, I knew that Christians had the same stories, but I didn't really put two and two together, you
Yeah.
know? And so when I heard the song Coat of Many Colors, I was like, oh, she knows the whole story. So that was a moment where of connection.
Yeah.
And she was extremely humorous and fun and always brought fun with her no matter where she went, regardless of how serious she was. And she was so generous, like you said. I was on Leland the other night, and they had her former publicist on, who was her publicist her whole life.
Mhm.
And Leland mentioned something about how happy she was for Whitney Houston's success with "I
Yeah.
Will Always Love You," and her publicist said, "Let me tell you how happy she actually was." So she had a record that came out at that time, and
Mhm.
she told me to stop publicizing it for a few weeks so that she wouldn't steal any thunder from Whitney's success when it went double platinum or triple platinum.
Selfless.
And I was like, "Of course she did. Of course she did."
Yeah.
Like, that just makes complete sense because she cared about humanity
Yeah.
first. And for me and my family, so my husband's from rural Georgia, and my stepson, I call him my new son, not my stepson because that sounds weird. My new son, he's gay and lives with his partner. And my mother-in-law got married at a little white church where like her mother got married, their grandparents got married. It's like a little one-horse town.
Yeah.
Small town, rural Georgia. And like the thought would have never occurred to my mother-in-law to love him any less. Like
Mhm.
it literally never would have occurred to her. And she's just that kind of person. And there's very few people in this world, I think, that are so pure of heart. And
Yeah.
Dolly was really one of them. And
Yeah.
the way that she embraced gay people at within a culture too that she stood for, right?
Yeah.
Because she stood for a religious small community. And she was
Yeah.
like, no, why would I judge anyone? And also, like, I particularly love them because I think they're wonderful humans. And, you know,
I mean,
for me, she was a role model and brought so much sunshine into the world. And I'm also a singer too and a songwriter. So she was my person. She was my, if I could go to dinner with anybody, and that's why.
no, absolutely. And that's great. I mean, you just touched on so many things there. I mean, her music cut across country, pop, you know, Christian evangelical music, gospel, what have you.
Mhm.
And by all accounts, Dolly was who she said she was.
Yeah,
You could just see it when
authentic,
you listen to her talk.
always.
You could see the humor, you know, the self-deprecation that she did that was funny. I mean, she
Mhm.
didn't do it in a weird way. It was
Yeah.
funny. I mean, and that sense of humor, you know, she'd say things and I'd laugh out loud. And I rarely laugh out loud at like comedy shows.
Yeah.
But you know, listening to some of her interviews and some of the things that she would say, the way she'd talk about herself, you know, her breast, her wigs,
Right.
what have you know, it was just funny. I mean,
It was so funny, and actually, I took this
genuine.
one branding class where, like, actors did it because all my friends were actors at the time, and I was like, "That sounds like fun, I wanna do that," and they were teaching people about authenticity, how to lean into yourself, and the person that the example that they gave was Dolly Parton, and they were defining her as somebody who has a tremendous amount of charisma, and
Yeah,
it was because she says the thing that nobody wants, that everyone's too afraid to say. But then the second that she says it, everyone calms down and says, "Oh, we can relax now." The example
exactly.
was like, the drunk girl at the party. As soon as she comes in and she says, "Hey, everybody, I'm drunk," everyone can relax because you don't have to feel like you have to make up for something, right? When she makes a joke about her hair or her breasts or whatever, or her outfits, all of a sudden you go, "Oh, we're on the same page here." And it's an act of generosity and kindness
Yeah,
so that you can really connect with somebody when they do that. And it's a beautiful example to set in whatever room you walk into.
yeah. I mean, we've definitely lost a light, and I think we're worse for it. Worse
Yep,
off for it.
that's
You
for
know?
sure.
So that's my 2 cents. Anyway, people, thanks for bearing with us through that.
Yeah.
You know,
And
we
share
love
your dolly
you.
stories. Like, send us your dolly stories.
Absolutely.
Put them in the chat below or whatever, because she's somebody we both love, and I'm sure you guys love her too.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody. How could you not love her? I mean,
Right?
she was
It's like people who don't like love dogs. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
It's hard to imagine or wrap your head around
Hard.
who wouldn't like her. I mean,
Right, exactly.
so all right, let's get into the news of today. Um, you know, let's hit the big one first. Midterms. Right now, there are 3 different stories that are, talking about one big picture, and it's not a pretty picture. Yeah, the Supreme Court, who has cleared the way this week for Trump to move forward on his executive order restricting mail-in voting. Now, Maddie,
Mhm.
this is one of those things, and I've been talking about this for years. You know, Trump teed these things up in his first run for office. You're talking about mail-in voting,
Right.
and how it was cheating and this, that, and the other. It was already teeing it up way back then.
Yep.
And then when he lost and came back, he's talking about how it's, it's a way for people to cheat. Keep in mind, he mails in his ballot.
Right. Right. Well, it's like the
And for
taxes
him,
thing or whatever, and people would say to him, "You cheat on your taxes too." He's like, "Well, yeah, everyone does."
he said it makes him smart.
Right.
Yeah.
Everyone does. It's like,
So
"Oh, okay, great. You're part
to
of
pay
the
zero
problem.
to pay zero
Awesome.
taxes. I
We should
remember.
totally trust you to fix it." But yeah, I think when it comes to this is one of those stories that um I try not to dig super deep into because I know it's going to change.
Yeah.
Like he's going to continue to appeal and adjust and restart a case by adjusting something because the whole point is to create confusion.
Right.
Like, and I know that that's me speculating, but in my opinion, the whole point is to create confusion so that people will question the validity of the election regardless of what happens. Because if he or his people are in power, which by the way, I still think he's going to run for a third term if he's alive.
Mm.
Um, I do because Steve Bannon said it, and whatever Steve Bannon says that he's going to do, he ends up doing.
Yeah.
And so I think that he's trying to lay the groundwork for questioning things, especially because the midterms are coming up and he gonna lose the House for sure. And he is going to have to make some excuse as to why as to why he's not he shouldn't be impeached. And the more like layers of possibility where things could have gotten messed up because every time you create a new rule, you have to retrain all of the election officials.
Yeah.
And if you create a new rule that's so close to election time, it doesn't make any sense and people get trained differently. And that's the point, right? That's the exact point.
Well, that's to, and let's be clear for everybody. This order directs the Postal Service to deliver mail-in ballots only to people on a federally approved eligibility list.
Right.
Okay. So you got a whole bunch of things going on there. Who the hell, number one, gave the USPS the right to say anything in elections? They have nothing to do with them.
Excellent point.
Whatsoever. Federal government has nothing to do with elections. It's run by state.
Right.
So now you've got, and I get, and we'll get into this a little bit later, that some of these judges who made these rulings and placed these injunctions did things a little bit early.
Mhm.
I mean, you're a lawyer, so you can say more
Oh,
about
yeah,
that,
everything
putting
seems
the
right.
cart before the horse. But they weren't wrong.
Yeah.
But I guess legally, the framework there, I guess the Supreme Court was saying, "Oh, you're too early on
Yeah.
these things." This was going on last year sometime is when all this started.
Yeah.
But now we're less than 75 days out from an election. Okay, and
Rulings, yeah.
ballots are probably going to start going out or being prepared next week.
Yeah.
So, there is certain that little bit more of chaos into these. And don't get me wrong, people. I still think that the House Democrats are going to take back the House.
That's
I
for
think
sure.
people are going to show up in record numbers in this midterm.
Yep.
Democrats, I think they're going to show up, and that's what these midterms are always about, is turnout. And I think Democrats are going to turn out, even though, for me criticizing my party on certain things like messaging and staying on message,
Yeah.
I think for the most part we've been doing okay. But there's so many distractions thrown out there. I think some of us get, off on these tangents that the media, they follow the shiny object that the media keeps throwing
Yeah,
out
these
there.
past 2 weeks have been rough.
So forget about that. It's the economy, stupid.
Mhm.
Keep it on that. Keep it on affordability. That's a
Totally.
winning message. Keep it on education, healthcare, and the price of gas, I guess.
Mhm.
Keep it there. That's what people are feeling right now. That's what people want.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, they want to insert that chaos into this cycle to help them as much as possible. And
The more doubt they can insert, the better for them.
it just feels like every time we turn around, SCOTUS is allowing Trump to put his finger on the scale that much more.
Yep.
So that's
And it's because the way that he approaches a lot of any legal situation is by asking for forgiveness rather than permission.
exactly
And he also his messaging is totally intertwined with the law. Like he is very carefully making sure that the things that he wants to get done are within an acceptable framework, right? Like there is a construction of the law where this is possible. And you might say to yourself, wait, that's like a very twisted, weird version of
interpretation
it.
of what.
And,
Yeah,
right. And then you go, and then the court gets it and they go, well, that's not really what this is about, but I guess technically it fits. Like technically it fits. So I think you have to do that. And
but
then you
technically, it's something that they can be argued.
yes, right, and, like, within the construction of the statute, and then the three liberal justices are like, "Yeah, but no, like, we also have an obligation to make sure that we're doing justice overall, and just because this kind of fits, doesn't mean that it fits with the spirit of the law." And that's why they get
That's
shafted because they're like, "Oh, well, we can't really take that seriously." But it's because they're so good at manipulating the law and
Mhm.
looking at loopholes and working around it, so
And it's I like that you said that, because on a lot of these rulings that have come out of the Supreme Court lately, I mean, and I'm looking strictly at these conservative justices like
Mhm.
Kavanaugh, Barrett, Roberts,
Alito,
Alito, and Thomas. He's just a lost cause, but I'm not even going to go there.
Love House.
When these are people who say, well, we look at what do they call traditionalists, or
Yeah. Yeah. Strict construction. What is it?
and look at the letter of what
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Constitution said, and they read it the way the founders
yeah. Mhm.
meant it, whatever that's called,
Yeah.
traditionalists or whatever. And even in some of those things where it's obvious this is what the founders meant,
Mhm.
the Trump administration will present an argument and they'll be like, yeah, that's right. Like
Yeah.
birthright citizenship. That shouldn't have been something that you could even have an argument about.
Yeah.
Yet
And I
they
mean, I
voted
knew
on it.
they'd lose because and I even told
Well,
myself,
it should
like
have been kicked out in the first place. It should have never been.
right. There
That's
there was
just one
there
example.
was no there was no version of that argument
Yeah.
that hadn't already been made
Mhm.
and the court hadn't already ruled on. So there
Yeah.
wasn't gonna be a whole lot of ways that you could manipulate the language in order to be able to bring a new kind of case. And so any lawyer worth their salt, and it's funny because they were the ones in that case that ended up making the spirit of the law argument because they were arguing that it was for children of slaves and not for immigrants. And so they were the ones that ended up arguing the spirit of the law and they lost. And it's not that
Yeah.
the spirit of the law always loses, but if you don't have strong language to back it up, it
Right.
makes it that much harder. And what I mean by strong language is some like language that supports it, but is not, but isn't exactly on point.
Right.
Um, and so, you know, any lawyer worth their salt should have said, of course, he's going to lose that case. And so if you heard any lawyer say that he's going to win it, please understand that that was not somebody who was trying to tell you the truth.
Yeah. And there are other examples of, where, you know, I mean, to be clear, in keeping with the spirit of, what the founders meant,
Mhm.
you have to be able to make a reasonable argument that this is
Yeah.
what they meant, or they couldn't have foreseen X, Y, and Z,
Right.
250 years later, but this is in keeping with the spirit of what they meant.
Exactly.
This Supreme Court has gone in the complete opposite direction of, what some of the things in the Constitution say that they've let Trump get away with.
Yeah, it's
You know,
insane.
and
It's
the biggest thing I see is their take on executive power.
Mhm.
That's the
Definitely.
biggest thing I see. I mean, if I'm looking at the checks and balances that are supposed to be there, they're supposed to be checking each other,
Mhm.
and that's not what's going on. Hey, you got a weak Congress, and you've got an executive that thinks he's a king and can do whatever, and you've got a Supreme Court that's basically saying, yeah, he can pretty much do what he wants to, pretty
So
much.
so I went to, a jury consultants convention, a trial consultants convention, in June, and I got these results from surveys that went out from some of the folks who conduct focus groups for a living, who decided to do this project.
Mhm.
And they asked people about their political affiliations, and this was in Florida. And, uh, they found that 1/5 of the respondents overall, um, when they were informed of what authoritarianism meant, still chose it as their preferred form of government right now. And it was in 2024 to 2025, like
Yeah,
December, January. And so things were different then, very different than they are now.
yeah,
But that was still something that people were so primed for. And it's for a reason because they breadcrumbed us to get us to this point to where we were willing to accept the things that we've been willing to accept. And you could very honestly say, well, we're not accepting it.
mhm,
But the secret that I would say to politics, the secret is that if you want to get away with an agenda, you have to figure out how to get people on board with it. That's the
right.
whole ball game. That because you can't wage war if you don't have soldiers. Like you can't protect your seat in power if you don't have people standing in front of you. So the game is always how do you get people to stand beside you?
But that doesn't surprise me at all, Maddie, because there's always been a portion of this country that no longer believes in democracy, even going back as far as World War II when the
It
Germans were
surprised
putting out
me, honestly. It
propaganda.
surprised me.
Yeah, there was so many people were susceptible to it that they
Yeah.
were like, yeah, this isn't working. We need a strong man, which I think it's hard for me to wrap my head around that.
Yeah,
You know,
me too.
being an American and everything it means to be an American or supposed
Yep.
to mean to be an American, that there is a not insignificant portion of our population who feel otherwise.
It's
Crazy.
shocking to me.
Yeah.
Truly, truly shocking.
Yeah. I mean, it's nuts. Now, to be fair on this ruling, SCOTUS didn't say or weigh in on whether or not the order is actually legal,
Yeah, that's why I'm holding off.
but they're
And
running
this
up.
is what you just said super important. So if Trump's claiming a win, that's not what happened.
Right. Not what happened, but in effect, the effect is, I mean, they're not going to come in and all vote on it next week. This is where Justice Roberts came in and said, "Oh no, you know, this judge who did this came in too early. I'm going to stay her stay or whatever
Mhm.
it is. I don't know all of the legal terms because I'm not a lawyer, but Maddie is.
It's all the same. You said everything correctly.
But he's running out the clock.
Yeah.
They're supposed to get ballots and everything set up next week, and this thing could go for months. As far as how they operate, and then by that time, just like the uh, ballroom, they've already done the damage has already
Exactly.
been done. The die's been
Forgiveness rather than
cast.
permission.
Yeah,
That's how
the
they
die's
roll.
been cast. So
And to me, that demonstrates a severe lack of disrespect. And inherent within that is saying that the executive branch should have more power than the judiciary, because if that's what you're doing is you're making a decision without checking with them first,
right, exactly.
basically.
Imagine if Obama had tried to do not even half, but a quarter
Obama couldn't wear a tan suit.
A
Okay, and I
quarter
liked the tan
of
suit.
the thing. Yeah, I thought it was fine. Yeah. But
I miss
he could have done
Obama,
a quarter of these
Marcus.
crazy things. Yeah, we all do. We all do.
I miss him so much.
But it's just nuts. So to the second part of that story, federal immigration officers are being pulled off of their work vetting immigration applications and reassigned to hunt for voter fraud, as it were. That's what they're calling it.
I'm sorry. How? What? So training means nothing to these
Voter
people.
fraud that's not there, by the way.
Right,
That's
doesn't
never
exist.
been there.
Doesn't
Yeah.
exist. And I give people the statistic all the time that the Heritage Foundation has found less than 1,600 attempts to vote fraudulently since the 1980s overall, right? Because what happens is often the system works. If somebody votes who's not supposed to, then that vote doesn't get counted. A lot of times when you hear about all of these Republicans that are saying voter fraud here, voter fraud there, well, what they're saying usually is that there are people on the voter rolls that shouldn't vote. And it's like, well, they probably didn't. And if they tried to, it wouldn't have gotten counted. And in the times when they've audited to see if it did get counted, the vast majority of the time it's under 10 per election. That's why it's been 40 years and they've found less than 2,000 instances of it overall.
Again,
So
it's a gang that can't shoot straight. I mean, what was it last week? The administration was on a Zoom call with, I guess, Attorney General and the Secretary of State, or some people from Nevada, and they were saying, "Yeah, we've got these 16,000 people who are on your voter rolls or whatever who can't vote or whatever," and they were like, "Okay, well, send us your list, because we've gone through and checked this, and there's, we found maybe 160 names of people who, shouldn't be on the voter rolls
have
or
died,
whatever,
have
and
moved, have
we're going to
whatever.
clean up that we're going to get sorted out in audits anyway," as to what you were saying.
Yep.
And they were like, "Oh, well, we don't have the list right now." So they were making all kinds of excuses. But this just goes to show the kind of BS that they've been doing, trying to put their fingers on the scale again, creating chaos wherever they can in this midterm. And it's going to be for nothing, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, hell, Democrats may even win the Senate in this. And a year ago, I wouldn't have said anything about that.
No. I think it's really possible, because I think that the Democrats have the extraordinary benefit of, first of all, the establishment. Like, we need a different word. Let's come up with another word for establishment Democrat right now, because I know we don't like it.
I still struggle with trying to figure out what they mean by the establishment.
We could just call it old guard.
Do they just mean moderate Democrats? People
moderate.
That's what they mean. Because if that's the case, I'm somewhere on the moderate spectrum to moderate to progressive. Somewhere in there. I don't know. I don't really fit in any box, and I hate when people try to put me in one.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I tell everybody, anybody who works in child welfare gets painted as a conservative. Like, because once you've seen terrible things, just like soldiers, like once you've seen horrible things that happen to innocent people, you go, yeah, I hope that person goes away forever and that no one advocates for them, actually. And like, of course, that somebody should, but like, it's not gonna be me. So, and you
should be thinking about best ideas when the ideas that are going to help the most people.
Yep.
And do no harm.
Yep.
And make life easier for the American people.
Yeah. And I think that the moderate Democrats, right, had been trying desperately to get access to, and we talk about this all the time, that 1/3 of Americans who don't usually vote but are eligible to vote, that came out for Obama, that haven't come out since. Right, and exactly. I've been saying, you guys have listened to me say this a million times, that they needed to give an inspirational message to this group of people, or else, because the targeting that they did for Kamala's election specifically did not work. I think Marcus is frozen. Are you there, Marcus? I don't know if I'm still frozen, but if not, I'll keep talking just in case. So I think that because the DSA was able to tap into those feelings
Mhm.
of that 1/3 of American voters, the Democratic Party finally got access to that. They finally got access to them, and that's going to finally turn out the numbers. So my
I hope
idea
that's right.
yeah,
I hope that's right because,
yeah,
the way I see it, these things ebb and flow with the issues and what's going on. I mean, do you have more people saying, yeah, it's time for a full revamp of the system, which I struggle with what that means too. What do you
yeah,
mean? Is it time to, get some more amendments into the Constitution, or, strengthen the guardrails, or,
because I'm not
do
abolishing the
things
Senate,
that
guys.
create some laws you know, that really cut against the grain? That could mean a whole lot of things. So
Yeah,
let's be clear about what it is that we mean. But as far as I see it, again, I said it before, it's the economy, stupid. When
mhm,
people start feeling it in their purses and pocketbooks, and they start feeling that pain there, yeah, I mean, things shouldn't be so damn hard.
yeah, yeah.
Life shouldn't be that hard.
Life shouldn't be so hard, and if you
Yeah.
give someone a picture of their own future that they can see themselves in, that's easier. You
Mhm.
know, I went to New York, not this past weekend, but the weekend before to do Newsmax, and I did their, like, Sunday morning show. I was there from 7 to 10, and it was fun, and they know I'm a diehard liberal, and it was funny actually because I think I sold them on one of Mom Donnie's policies. That week, Mom Donnie decided that he was gonna do, like, a pilot night for the childcare program where it was like a parents' night out,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Madeline, why should the taxpayers of New York City have to fund childcare for other people's children? What if they don't even
Mhm.
have children?" And I was like, "Well, um, here's the thing, right? The tax that's going to fund this is coming from what's
Mhm.
called a pied-à-terre tax, right? Pied-à-terre means like a city apartment,
Mhm.
and it's only going to apply to people who have 2 homes, right? Their primary home is not in New York City,
Right.
and the second home in New York City is worth over $5 million.
Right.
And they were like, "Okay." So, because I was like, "So the people who need this childcare are not the ones that are paying for it." And they were like, "Well, how is that fair?" And I was like, "Well, the people who don't live primarily in New York City but have nice homes there are usually the ones who own businesses who employ people who work
Absolutely.
in New York City. And the problem is that they're not paying them enough money to where they can afford to pay for childcare and transportation
Very
while
much.
they're at work or to get to work. And that's why it's fair." And they were like, "Oh." And I was like,
Okay.
"Did I just win?"
You did, and Mom Donnie drove these things home. He's talked about
He's
it ad
such a good
nauseam,
politician,
and
and it's because he means it. I'm not saying he's bullshitting. I don't think he is. I think
no,
he's authentic.
I think he's authentic. I think he's genuine. I mean,
I love
when
him
it comes
so
across,
much.
the same thing with Al Saeed. I mean,
I you do you
he
love him
drugged
too? So we
Jesse
gotta talk
Waters
about
the other
this.
night when obviously Jesse was trying to embarrass him. It just
Yes.
didn't work. But I
Yes, tell
mean,
me what you thought about that interview.
oh, I thought he held his own
Me too.
brilliantly, to be honest with you. I mean, and the brilliant part of it was the fact that he exposed Jesse.
He totally did.
Yeah,
And,
that
like,
was the
Jesse had a
brilliant
little bit of
side.
a crush on him, let's be
Yeah.
honest.
So, I mean, when you can hold your own, stay clear on the facts,
Yep.
and continue to speak in a way that people are going to understand, plus expose that Jesse's going after him, trying to embarrass him or trip him up, and
Yep.
you know, and still keep your composure.
Yep.
Again, he's a political athlete. He's pretty good.
So
Yeah.
the I should talk about this, I guess, since you guys have dedicated your time to listening to me here. So I went on Will Cain's show on Fox
Mhm.
and decided to defend Hassan Piker before all of this stuff started. It was literally the Friday before that Sunday when Abdullah Sayed went on Meet the Press
Right.
and refused to denounce Piker, although he denounced his statements. And um, the reason why was because, and I'm in therapy about it, was because I was very triggered by the Islamophobia. like
Yeah.
very triggered. And my therapist says it's like anti-Semitism, but all hate should trigger
But you get
other.
a lot of that in these social media circles that
I
comes out. I mean,
I just saw I saw all of the accusations of Sharia law and
yeah.
all this bullshit, and it upset me so much because I was like, how is it that this man is married to a female medical doctor,
Mhm.
and you think that he's going to try to institute Sharia law? And they played a clip for me that I knew, like I knew what the clip was. And I was like, actually, he wasn't talking about defending Sharia law. He was saying we don't need to outlaw it because it's not a problem. And it was evident that people were afraid of something they didn't need to be afraid of. So I
That's
just lost my shit. Like
that's
I went off about it. And so I said it, I put out an apology the next day on X. And like I really didn't have that many X followers at the time. This was like 2 weeks ago. And I just did it for myself and said I should have been more nuanced. I should have said, exactly how I felt about Piker's statements, but I just felt like defending people who were standing up against Islamophobia at the time. And I had gotten like death threats and a lot of that stuff since then. But somehow all of that ended up with Hassan Piker. And he invited me to come to his studio, and his followers were incredibly kind. And they were like, no, 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 let him explain it to you. None of them were mean to me. And so I did a huge deep dive before I went there, and I flew to Los Angeles, and I did a huge deep dive on his stuff and looked up, like somebody had sent me the 10 worst things that Hassan Piker has said.
right.
And I'm Jewish, right? And I looked them all up. I watched the episode fully in context, and they were wrong about him. They really did clip his stuff out of context. Like they truly did.
Yeah.
And now, to be fair, he will sometimes take the opposite position and lean too far opposite it. Like he takes pleasure in making people think that he likes Russia or China, even though he doesn't. And I'm like, you rage baiting the world is not making things better.
Yeah. It
And I
doesn't help
straight
any.
up said that to him. I was like, you have too big of a platform now to like rage bait
To
and
not do things that are constructive to moving the conversation forward.
yes, exactly. I was like, I've been desperately trying to do this for 2 years, and you are shutting people's minds off to where they're not going to listen to your message. But I want to tell you that I'm sorry that I thought you were anti-Semitic, because you're not. And that's just the truth. And that was like 2 days after the Rolling Stone article came out or whatever. And then this, like the last couple of days, has been obsessed with the day that I was there. Like when they said that he said this anti-Semitic stuff, and I was like, that's not what he said. He never said that. And it got clipped out of context completely. And now that truth is coming out. But for the 2 days before that, I got so much hate. Like
Excoriated.
so much. People called me the word that you call people for Jews who helped the Nazis. Like, and I was just like, look, when the truth comes out and people see that it was never like this, then I'll be fine. People will see it eventually, and it doesn't have, I don't have to feel bad in the meantime while I'm waiting for people to see the truth. And luckily it came out a lot faster than I thought it was, than I realized. But don't be afraid, folks, ever to stand by how you feel, because I'll stand with you. We'll stand with you. Like you're not alone.
We talk
And
about it all the time.
like
Having
it's
the courage of your conviction.
because that's all that matters. That's all that matters. And at the end of it, it's like with what's his name? Who's the guy who dropped out in Maine? Graham.
Graham Platter.
Yeah. Like I knew he was a scumbag. I just felt it from the beginning. So I stuck with that, even though nobody else did. Marcus stuck with it from the very beginning and stood next to me. So what I'm saying is if you have a deep instinct about something and then go study it, and you know for sure that you're right, don't just come get us. We'll come stand with you.
I got to be totally honest with everybody. I just wasn't feeling Plattner.
Yep.
From the beginning. I mean, when he first came out, the team and everybody, people who don't know me or my background, who are watching, I run political action committees, and we pick candidates to support in their campaigns. And the team came to me and they were like, "Hey, what do you think about Plattner?" And this was like early in the primary, and I was like, there's something I can't quite put. This is before all the vetting that we knew of.
Yeah,
I just couldn't put my finger on it, but I didn't get that feeling from him.
Mhm.
I was like, so I stood back. I said, no, we're not going to move on this guy. Um, yeah, let's watch this one.
My man Marcus,
You
my
know,
man.
that feeling was right. I, it
I
wasn't any
love
big
that we both had
strategic
that deep
thing
talk
where I
about
was like, okay, we're going to do a deep dive on this guy. And
Yep.
really, because, you know, it was a snap decision. I just didn't have the feeling for him. And yeah,
Yeah. And it's hard to trust your instincts sometimes if you haven't practiced it. Like, when I started becoming a jury consultant, I specifically tested it constantly and had to calibrate my intuition, and I got stuff wrong, but I realized I'd have to test it and calibrate it so that I could trust it, because what else am I gonna have the rest of my life other than my intuition? So, like,
yeah.
you
Now,
just
for
learn to
other
trust it.
candidates, we do deep dives. I mean, we'll do a deep dive on a candidate we're going to support. We're going to make
Yeah,
sure
totally, and
this
our
person
candidates
is
are
who they are.
the best.
Yeah.
Our candidates are the best.
But he didn't even make it that far with me.
Yeah.
It was just like, no, I'll pass. Let's focus on some other candidates and some other races. And yeah, glad we didn't. So
Me
it would have
too.
been a waste of
So,
time
I wanted to
and
give you guys
a
the
waste
inside
of
scoop.
resources as well.
Yes. I wanted to give you guys the inside scoop on all that stuff, and thank you for sticking with me, because from the outside, it might have looked completely crazy. But that's what's going on the inside, and now that the truth is coming out, you guys heard the whole story from here. And actually, Adam Mockler, and I talked about this right before I went on Hassan's show. I messaged him and Mike Nellis. And
Or
then a couple days later, Adam came out and said the same thing. So it was cool that we were on the same page, because I'm sure he did his research too. Like, I'm sure he did. So,
speaking of whom, I'll let you tell everybody.
no, you told
About
already.
our our good friend Adam.
Mhm.
He'll be joining you next week while I'll be out. So we can um, get that news out there. So
Yep, Adam Mockler next week.
tune in next week for Maddie and Adam, which I'm sure that'll be a great conversation. I'll be watching
Mhm.
while I'm out celebrating my anniversary with my
Yay!
wife.
How many years?
So it'll be 11 years.
Oh, that's such a lucky number.
Yeah. Long
Do we
time.
know what the 11th year is? Wait, I want to find out.
I don't know, like bubblegum wrappers or something like that. I don't know.
11th year anniversary.
Beer cans, which I'll be drinking some beer, I'm sure.
It says
Um,
fashion or costume jewelry. Oh,
I can do
steel.
that.
Steel.
Steel. Okay.
Yes.
The steel anniversary.
I
Cool.
like it.
So, before we get on to military news,
Yes.
I just want to say a little bit more about Dolly Parton's life, and how her life also gives us a standard for the rest of this conversation today, which we only have about 15 minutes left. But politics is power, people, but character, that determines how power is used. So as we turn to the other headlines of today, the military headlines, I want to keep asking the same question. Are the people with influence using it to make life better for others, or are they using it to enlarge themselves? Dolly Parton leaves behind music that will outlive each and every one of us, and institutions that are going to continue to serve children, and public examples that feel increasingly rare. So she showed us that you can rise without looking down, lead without humiliating people. That sound like, and succeed without forgetting where you came from.
She
And
did that.
that's a fitting place to begin, and a standard worth carrying into the next conversation as we get into the military news and talk about our not so good friend Pistol Pete Hegseth, who
I don't like him. I do not care for him. We don't like him very much on the show.
I think now we know why he fired the Army's top officer, days before General Randy George was abruptly removed as Army's chief of staff in April with no explanation. He was reportedly advised by General Chris Leneve who's now in line to replace him, to drop the investigation into the unauthorized Apache helicopter flyover at Kid Rock's house. You guys remember that? So,
Like, what the? Do you
That's-
people not have better things to do?
yeah. I mean, George wanted to know if there were any safety protocols that were violated, and Hegseth had already publicly killed the investigation himself. No punishment, no investigation. Carry on, Patriots. That was
Nothing.
that's what he wrote at the time. So,
I'm
yeah, it's crazy.
angry.
I mean, this is crazy. I mean, you see just the level of incompetence from this Secretary of Defense. I refuse to call him Secretary of War.
Yeah, sure.
Refuse from this.
Yeah, but refuse to stay true social.
Thing. It's crazy. And with Watergate, it wasn't so much the crime, it was a cover-up. This feels like one of those cover-ups.
Tell me more about that.
No, he's trying to get rid of people to cover up the fact that, we did something completely stupid. It was unsafe. This guy wants to investigate it. Let's get rid of him. And don't tell anybody that's why we got rid of him.
The cover-up versus the crime.
But in this case, it's just covering up ineptitude and incompetence. That's what he's trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we also got Navy officials reporting, discussing stripping Doris Dory Miller, who was a guy who worked in the kitchen on a ship during Pearl Harbor and wasn't trained to man a gun, but manned a gun and shot down some enemy aircraft, probably saving lives on that carrier. This was during Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
There was a ship that was going to be named after him, but Trump, of course, jumps in and says, "Oh, I want my name on a battleship." Miller was the first black sailor who was awarded the Navy Cross for pulling wounded shipmates to safety, during that attack on Pearl Harbor as well. So.
Ooh, I got so angry. I don't know if you can see anger, but if you can, it just washed over me.
Well, and Trump, who avoided military service by, getting his daddy and doctors to write that he had bone spurs during Vietnam, so he didn't have to go or whatever. He wants a ship that's supposed to be named after Miller, named after him. I mean, he's been complaining about this since, he was kicked out of office the last time. So,
riddle me this, Batman. Why don't his followers care? Like, why don't the people like him care that he's obsessed with putting his name on everything?
Well, admitting you're wrong, admitting you've been deceived by people, that's a hard thing to do.
Totally.
I just don't think a lot of the people in MAGA have that kind of courage, that personal courage.
But even that little thing, like even that little piece, you think that's still part of it?
I mean, you got a few of them that I think are coming, but they're still that hardcore 30% base who are with him no matter what.
So how we've been talking about that 30% base and like that's been our estimate. Mm-hmm. So I actually saw that pan out in some of the polls that I gathered over the weekend. I use Claude to get poll data all the time. Like that's a really good use for it for me because it'll send me to the source and it'll keep the source going and it'll keep it refreshed. So it's specifically like between 34 and 36%. Mm-hmm. Of anywhere between like 32 and 36% of the Republican Party that thinks that Donald Trump is doing a great job, right? Yeah. So we were spot on. Like we were exactly on about that.
Yeah, I mean, and when you think of how much of the electorate that is, these guys got a president. I mean, think about 30% of people who are eligible
to vote
don't vote.
And then that's 30% of the amount of people who, in the US
That's
who
about
identify as Republican
as
who are also
Republicans. Yeah,
eligible voters.
yeah. So I mean, just think of those numbers. You know, when you look at how many people voted in the last presidential election, and it's crazy because all you need to do is move 2 to 3%, not even 2 to 3%,
Mhm.
1% of those people that are eligible to vote who don't register and don't vote, just 1% either way,
Yep.
and it makes it difficult for people to have unpopular policies and get
Yeah,
elected.
that's for sure. And nobody likes this war.
Nobody likes this.
Nobody. Like
That's it.
even MAGA people, when they think about this war, like they can't even stick to that talking point, which was, well, at least Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. Like, but we weren't concerned. Like, and then also like the
That's okay.
JCPOA was perfectly fine. And so we just don't buy that talking point anymore. So until you
The
can tell,
JCPOA was working.
right, it was
It
working
was
beautifully.
observable.
So until like they felt the Iranians felt respected and we didn't have any problems. Like, I mean, with directly with America, I know that there were issues with the Houthis and things like that, but
Well, yeah, part of that argument back then was, oh, we're giving Iran billions of dollars to do X, Y, and Z, or it was framed as giving them money to build a nuclear weapon,
right.
and that's none of that was true. It was
None of
all
that was true.
false. It was all observably bullshit. And you know, now what's going to happen? We basically handed over the Strait of Hormuz to Iran for them to do basically what they want to with it, because this administration has shown itself too incompetent and too weak to get anything of substance done with the
Yep.
Iranians, other than bombing infrastructure that is probably for civilian use only. So that's under investigation as well.
The thing that Marcus taught me, and the thing that our producers too were able to inform me about, was that the reason why they keep calling ceasefires is because they get to reset the clock every time that they do, so that they don't have to ask Congress for permission for things. Because I
Yeah,
did not know that before you told me.
it's an old trick. I mean, it's probably been used by other administrations as well, Democratic administrations, but it's a trick, but not to this extent. Yeah. So
It's just unbelievable, Marcus.
that's what we get, and that's when I talk about character. Dolly had it.
Oh yeah, that's for damn sure.
Some of our elected officials don't have it, and some of these officials who were, nobody elected, who are just a part of the administration, political hires, what have you, they don't have it. It's all about them. It's all about enlarging themselves, um, and to keep it on Pete Hegseth, the Pentagon fired the Stars and Stripes editor in chief, Eric Slavin, in the middle of Middle East reporter and the Middle East reporter Laura Corte for insubordination, after they said on CBS that censoring for the troops would be a red line. The paper had just published reporting on an apparent suicide attempt aboard the Lincoln and the military's dwindling missile stockpiles. That kind of pissed Hegseth and the Pentagon off. So whatever happened to free speech?
This is a perfect example of how I'm sure that they check with legal before they come out with their talking points, because I'm sure that they went to some lawyer and said, can we get away with firing them and calling it insubordination? And obviously, like, that's not what it is. But if they have some legal defense that they think that they can put forth, and I call it, like, in my regular life, I call it the bullshit legitimate defense, meaning what is it that they think is going to win them this argument? Like, what's their best argument? I'm curious to see what that's going to be, because I know that the military has its own rules in terms of following chain of command,
Right.
and so insubordination means something different in the military world than it might mean in the corporate world. But I'm very curious to see how they're going to defend this one.
I mean, I think those reporters have, or the editor and the reporter, I think they've got some First Amendment lawsuits
Yeah.
there that they can follow up on. But, while Pete is firing these guys for, telling the truth, they're also telling sailors and Marines to scrub their social media and hide any sign they're in the military at all, citing a coordinated multi-million-dollar campaign. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Trustworthy things.
I mean, I can get that. I get that if you were maybe a special operations,
Sure.
you don't want all of that out there. I mean, if you're in very sensitive jobs, but I mean, you look all over social media, Facebook, Instagram, what have you. You've got soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, guardians, all over their
Yeah.
social media feed because they're proud of what they do.
Yeah, and it helps to keep morale up, especially when morale is so low, to be able to have some folks at home see you and give you some support.
Way to keep in touch with family and friends.
Yeah.
Because they're proud to be in there. You
And it
shouldn't.
makes us feel good to be able to recognize the work of the troops too. Like it's good for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do it a lot, but that's because I was on a place where we had to kind of focus a lot on operational security and things like that. I come from the intelligence and electronics
You
warfare
couldn't tell
world,
people where you were, what you were doing, Mark. It was a little different.
a lot of times, but it's fine for other soldiers to do it. I mean, also we didn't have Facebook and all that stuff back in those days anyway. I didn't get on Facebook until like 2011 or something like that. It was the first time I was ever on it. So yeah, that was just me. But even then, First Amendment, it means something.
It does, yeah.
It does. And I think that's where we have to leave it today, guys. As always, we couldn't get to all of the stories, but I always enjoy having these conversations with you, Maddie.
Me too. Thank you so much, Marcus. And are we doing military time tomorrow?
Yes, we're doing military time tomorrow, so we will catch up with some of these military stories. We'll follow up on some of these, dig into them a little bit tomorrow. And
for our paid subscribers, so become a paid subscriber so that you can catch up on military time with us.
That's it. And again, thank everyone for tuning in, and definitely encourage more people to subscribe. People who are watching, encourage your friends to subscribe and spread the word. Special shout outs to our paid subscribers. We appreciate you guys.
Thank you guys so much.
You're what helps keep this engine moving, getting out our newsletter, and as far as guests, send us on our webpage, whether on With All Due Respect Substack or the With All Due Respect YouTube page or our Facebook page. Let us know who you think we should have on, and we'll reach out to those people. We already told you about Adam Mockler coming on next week to talk with Maddie. That ought to be fun.
Yep.
I won't be here next week, but I'll see you the week after. So see you next time, everybody. And as always, with all due respect, we appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.